In this video, we will take a few minutes to talk about the Code Insight REST API interface and how it allows users the ability to extend the power of Code Insight. REST APIs provide a language-agnostic programmatic interface with Code Insight to provide users the ability to manage projects, extract data, automate processes, integrate with external systems, as well as many other system interactions. During this video, we'll talk about how a user can create an authorization token. We'll look at the Swagger documentation and then use Swagger to get the project ID for a specified project name. Then we'll use an external application, Postman, to run a few more system queries as examples. And finally, we'll look at an example program that will automate project creation, code upload, initiating a project scan, and then creating a report, all via the available Code Insight REST APIs. The first thing that we will need is an authorization token that will allow us to access Code Insight via the REST APIs. To generate this token, access the Preferences option within the main menu. Here, add a token, specify the token name, and when the token expires if it does at all. Once the token has been created, you can copy the contents of the token to your clipboard for future use. It is possible to have multiple tokens depending on your requirements. Also note that the API permissions granted to the users will be limited by the specific roles at the system or project level that the user has. In other words, if a user can't perform a task via the UI, they will not be able to perform it via REST. The documentation for the REST APIs are provided via Swagger, which can be accessed via the Help menu. This Swagger documentation outlines the current APIs that are available within the release that is being used. The API capabilities are grouped by a common functionality, such as inventory APIs, project APIs, and report-based APIs, to name a few, as you can see here. Swagger also provides users a simple way to execute a REST API directly. As an example, let's take a look at the Get Project ID API. This API will return the project ID given a project name. This project ID is used for all other project-based APIs, so typically it is a good place to start. Click on the Try It Out button, enter the project name, and enter the authorization token generated earlier. Make sure this value is preceded by the word bearer. Once I execute the button, you can see the response returns the project ID, which in this case is 11. We can now take this project ID of 11 and jump to the Get Project Information API. Try that out. Enter the project ID of 11 as well as the word bearer and the authorization token again, and execute this. And here you can say we have information in regards to our project, which includes items such as the project name, scan profile type, as well as roll-up information in regards to vulnerability, as well as license data. Now let's take a look at a few more APIs geared towards pulling data from the Code Insight data library. For these, we will use Postman, which is a popular API client. As with Swagger, we will need the authorization token. In my case here, it's set as an environment variable, and I have the authorization type set to bearer token, which will prepend the word bearer with the request. First, let's look at the license lookup API, which allows users to pull license-specific information based on a given ID. The license ID is returned from multiple other API responses dealing with specific component or inventory items. For this API, I'll enter the license ID of 1, and the response contains information in regards to the license name, default license text, the SPDX identifiers, as well as other details. For our second example, let's look at the Component Search API, which allows users to search for component information within the data library. There are a lot of possible variations for this API. For this example, I want to search on a specific component name, Apache Struts, where it is an exact match, and I'd like the response to include the version information as well. As you can see here by the response, I found the Apache Struts item, which has a description, information about it, such as the URL, as well as based on my option of including versions, it provides all the different versions that are associated with this component. And now, based on this response, we can take one of the IDs for one of the versions returned and go to the Get Component Version Vulnerabilities API, enter that ID, and see what all the associated vulnerabilities are for that component version combination. Finally, let's automate the process of creating a project, uploading the code base to the project, starting a scan, determining when that scan is completed, and then generating a report. The code base for the following example is located within the SCA Code Insight REST API example repository as seen here. Prior to running the script, there is some configuration required at the top of the main function. Base URL, which is the URL import for the Code Insight instance, auth token, which is the authorization token discussed earlier, project name, which is the name of the project to be created, and code path, which is a path to the archive file being uploaded, all need to be configured. Now let's take a look at the script itself. As mentioned before, the first thing that will happen will be a call to create the project using the /projects API endpoint. This API call is simply passing the declared project name. Although other options could be provided, I am taking advantage of the project default setting and only passing this name. The response from this API is the project ID, which will be used in subsequent calls. Using the return project ID, I will now use the upload project codebase API to upload the archive file specified to the Code Insight scan server itself. And now that the code has been uploaded, I can initiate a scan using the scan resources project scan endpoint. The return value of this API is the ID of the scan task I just started. Using the scan task ID from the previous API, I can then periodically query the current state of the scan using the project scan status API. For this example, I'm checking the status every 5 seconds, and once the scan completes, I will allow the script to continue. Finally, now that the scan is completed, the project generate report API can be called, where the project ID and the report name are used to create and download the report to a zip file. Now, when we execute the script, we can see that a zip file is created, and then we can view the project inventory report itself. As you just saw, via the REST API interface, users can interact with Code Insight programmatically using any language with REST support such as Python, Java, or .NET. This ability to manage projects, extract data, integrate with third-party systems, and more allows users a flexible way to extend the power and capabilities of Code Insight to help in discovering and managing the open source content within the company. Thank you for watching. Check out additional videos demonstrating the various features of Code Insight. Please visit us at revenera.com/SCA for more information.